So far, no? All good to go? Are you all ready to move on to the second half of today's lesson? Okay, so let's move on. Next one. Just now we talked about hexagram 17. Over united, there could be inbreeding. Okay, inbreeding may cause decadent seeds to grow. So once decadent seed grow, this is where the next hexagram will comes in. It will lead to this kind of situation called confusing 山峰谷. Now, not only confusing can also comes from inbreeding. It can also comes in any other form that cause confusion all around us. One example, very good example, is what happened last year in year 2020, which is the COVID-19. Up to now, we are still dealing with COVID-19. Because COVID-19 strikes, it caused a lot of confusion among a lot of people, among the leaders, among all the researchers, scientists, doctors, caused a lot of confusion. Okay, so when we are in that state, in the kind of situation, we can always refer back to this hexagram 18, 山峰谷, called confusing, to look for guidance. Okay, to look for guidance. So what happened last year was that a lot of countries or a lot of leaders, not many understand this hexagram very well. So the response are all very different, and we can see the outcome of their choice of response. So let's move in to talk about this hexagram, confusing hexagram, to make you even more confused. Now, if you look at this cans of, is it called sardine? Let's call it sardine. Now, if I open up this can of sardine and I leave it there for a few days, what do you think will happen to this can of sardines? Type in the chat box. My question, if I open it up and leave it there, yes, thank you, Mary. Stinko, maggots, grow worms, maggots turn bad. Okay. Now, when the best way to learn hexagram is to remember something. Okay, remember a kind of situation that you were once in. For example, when I talk about 皮卦, hexagram 12, right? 皮卦, always think back about a choke pipe kind of situation. Water cannot flow through, everything gets stuck, nothing can move. That's called 皮卦. Now, when it comes to hexagram 18, confusing hexagram, you can always think about this can of sardine left open for days. Okay, think about that. When you talk about confusing hexagram, think about can of sardine open up for days. What had happened after that? And you all have rightly mentioned turn bad, grow worms, maggots, turn bad, whatever. Yes, basically this is called confusing. That means the situation has turned very bad, and it's basically like a cans of worms. So a lot of time, a lot of people want to play safe. They dare not open up cans of worms in their life. They want to play safe because they know they can't handle the worms. I'm sure it happened to us before. It happened to me before. There are certain things, for example, I may take on a section, a department, a unit, and then I may just happily, if I want to just pass my time happily, I will just carry on what has been carried on. I may not want to change certain rules. I may not want to change certain regulation because I fear of opening up a cans of worms. Because if I'm not ready to deal with the worms, then I better don't open. Am I correct to say that? So if you are willing to deal with the worm, then go ahead, open up the cans of worms. It's just like opening up a new life cycle door like that. So bear this in mind. When we talk about hexagram 18, confusing, this should be the picture that comes to your mind. Okay, cans of worms. Oops. Now, think about when you're in that situation, I Ching offer you some guidance. So like for example, when COVID-19 strike, everybody don't know what is COVID-19. Nobody is the wiser. So everybody is equally lost. So therefore, everybody is equally confused. This is exactly where this hexagram comes in because everybody's in a confused state. Now, the key thing I Ching is trying to remind us is that, if this strikes us, two key. One is early detection. Early detection. That means, you don't know what virus is this, but it's something that never seen before. It's called early detection. And you better quickly point it out, surface it up, called early detection. And if it's something that you don't know how to deal with it, better quickly nip the bud. Nip the bud means when it's at the infancy stage, nip it. Nip it. Otherwise, nip it. Otherwise, you're going to turn into a monster you can't control. Look at COVID-19. We know already. COVID-19 is exactly what do you call it? Hexagram 18 kind of situation. China don't know much about COVID-19. Whole world also don't know much about COVID-19. I'm not sure what they did at the early stage, but I'm sure they surface it up. They raised the alarm pretty late stage until Wuhan, got heavily infected and then spread all over the world. So it became a monster that we are trying to control today, up to today. So if you can look back at AOM1, there's another hexagram that talk about early detection nip the bud, which is hexagram 2.1, Kun Kwa, line 1. Anybody can remember hexagram line 1, what it says there? Chinese is called 驴霜兼并治. When you see the frost, expect the harsh winter to come. Yes, thank you, Mary. You remember, spot the frost. Exactly, this is what it means. In confusing hexagrams kind of situation, the faster you can detect early, the faster you can nip the bud, the faster you go over this situation. Okay, you can solve this situation, overcome this situation. But the longer you stay on this, you procrastinate, not doing anything, you're going to become a monster that you can't control. Like US, I think now they're doing pretty well, but previously they were in a mess. Okay, they were in a mess. So things that can cause you to be in the confusion state could be like, for example, corruption, fake news, nowadays there are a lot of fake news, like pandemic. Now we're going through this pandemic, terrorism. Okay, 9/11, throw everybody, especially US, off the ground. They are in a confused state, and any other destructive trend. For example, the ISIS thing, is a trend. Okay, it's a trend, but it's very destructive because that will lead to terrorism, and it's can easily cause any country or even the whole world into this hexagram situation. Now, I Ching tell us 卦辞元亨利色大川，先甲三日，后甲三日。Oh, let me ask you this. Confusing hexagram. Confusing. Look at COVID-19, cancer of worms. How come the 卦辞 say 元亨? Oops, sorry. How come 卦辞 say 元亨? 元亨. Okay, how come? And then say 利色大川. I mean, it's okay to go ahead with what you are supposed to do. So why like that? Shouldn't this 卦辞 be telling us a lot of negative things? That's your understanding of I Ching, why it is phrased in certain manner, contrary to what we thought it should be. That is where we can better learn hexagram and the significance of the hexagram. Basically, what it means here is that when things happen, you're in a confused state, you're none the wiser, never mind. Just do what you're supposed to do. If an SOP, for the SOP, do. It's called 利色大川, means go ahead and do what you're supposed to do. And then you're in the 元亨. Okay, you're in the 元亨. And then what is 先甲三日,后甲三日? What does it mean? 先甲三日,后甲三日 means if let's say this is COVID-19 strike here, this is present moment, COVID-19. Okay, strike here, this is present. 先甲三日 means before, the timing before, you have to have preparedness. You may not know it's COVID-19 that's coming, but at least you know it's called pandemic. Then you must have preparedness for pandemic. This is called 先甲三日. And 后假散热 means post event. Post event, this is called resume normalcy. Resume normalcy come with a responsibility, means whatever you have prepared before that, when you resume normalcy, you must also resume back the preparedness. If you have used up the toilet paper, make sure we put back the toilet paper after the whole crisis is over. This is called 后假散热. Yes, Joanna, thank you. How to restore to pre-COVID. Very good. Huh? Okay, so this is called 先假散热,后假散热. So basically, when we look at COVID-19 and look at Singapore, how we handle COVID-19, not the recent one, but last year, my take was that they were doing very good. Okay, very, very, very good. Because they also don't know what's COVID-19, but they just do what they need to do. They need to pull out their drawer plan, they pull out the drawer plan, they pull out the SOP, they need to pull out, they do. So before that, they already have a lot of preparedness. They stockpile toilet paper, stockpile rice, stockpile mask, stockpile sanitizer, whatever, they prepare. Okay? All right. So I think they learn from SARS. After SARS, what they do is they resume normalcy, but at the same time, they also prepare all the preparedness thing. That's why when COVID-19 comes, another different kind of a pandemic, we are still able to cope somehow. This is called confusing state. So it may be COVID-19 that's causing the confusion. It could be some other thing, could be the fake news. It could be the terrorism. So we have to put in this 元亨利色大川先假散热后假散热 into the system, so that whatever things happen, we will not be that fully confused. So if you look at this hexagram, this upper trigram is like a mountain, okay, like a mountain. This is kind of mountain, okay, like a mountain. And then below is a wind. So the wind is blowing somewhere below the mountain. Now we know nature, mountain, there'll be a lot of trees, there are a lot of leaves. And when there's wind blowing, tendency is that the leaves will drop like the picture here will drop. So if you have a garden, you have a yard, and there are always strong wind every day, and then leaves are dropping, maybe autumn time, leaves are dropping, and it make your yard or your garden very messy. What do you do? Do you just leave the leaves there? Or you look at your HDB environment, external environment, if the cleaner don't go and clean all the fallen leaves, within few days, you pile up and look very ugly. Yeah? So what we need to do here is that we have to learn from this hexagram imaginary. Yeah? Is that when there's a fallen leaf today, we'll just have to sweep the fallen leaf. Very clean. Then tomorrow, fallen leaf again, we have to sweep tomorrow again. Next day, next day, again, we sweep again. So what it means here is that if there's one case, contact trace the case. If you have two cases, contact trace the two cases. Something like that. This is what whole world is doing. But almost the whole world. Some country opt not to do it, or they don't have the means to do it. That's why things can blow out of control. So yeah, in the confusing thing, remember this. 先假散热,后假散热. And then if you need to sweep, keep on sweeping. Don't tell yourself saying that, hey, anyway, I sweep already, tomorrow dirty again, so might as well don't sweep. Wrong thinking. Yi Jing never say that. Yi Jing say, if you need to sweep, you sweep. Okay? So this is the advice. One day you will trip over the hip if you keep sweeping everything under the rug. I think India is paying the price for it. Sweeping everything under the rug. I mean, not facing the reality. So key thing is fix the issue when it's still a dirt. This is advice how to deal with 山峰谷 situation. It ties in very closely to hexagram 2.1. 离霜坚定子. So like last year, our dormitory, when there's an outbreak, very bad outbreak, government went in, the task force went in, they have to sweep every day, okay? They have to test everyone, no choice, okay? So 先假散热, so 后假散热 means like that, preparedness plus resiliency. So resiliency includes putting back what like what Joanna said, to restore to pre-COVID lah. If you have stockpile toilet paper, then better stockpile toilet paper again. If it's mask, stockpile mask. If it's sanitizer, stockpile sanitizer. Okay, if there's SOP, make sure you go and update the SOP. Things like that. So why 缘恨? Why put 缘恨? Is that when we keep doing what all these things what we mentioned just now, there will be new hope at the end of the tunnel. That's why 易经 puts it as 缘恨. So you see 易经 it won't give us a very negative kind of guidance and advice. It always give us hopes. It's written and anger in such a in a manner is always giving us hope, giving us motivation, giving us enough drives to want to pull through crises, things like that. So that's why in 成语否极泰来 okay 否极泰来否极 means this one 否极泰来we know P is hexagram 12, right? Tai is hexagram 11, right? So by right should be 泰来太极否来 right? But 易经 purposely put it this way called 否极泰来. That means always give us hope to say that, hey, once the crisis is over, Tai will come. Once the winter is over, the spring will come. So it's always giving us hope. 易经 is always anchored in this manner. So if I may put it this way, 易经 is like a motivation book, motivation book for every one of us. Now the confusion situation always begin with the first wave of the wind. That's like COVID. It always begin with the first wave from Wuhan. And the first wave always starts from, in the case of COVID, patient 0. And in other situation, it is that seed of decadence. For example, terrorism, it could be that thought or the idea, the thought that will have a ripple effect on the confusing state that later on we might be in. So it's always from the first wave, from that seed, from that 太极点. And we need to nip that thing at the butt. 离霜坚冰子. So of course, to err is human. No point regretting. So take ownership with a growth mindset. And this is what Singapore had been doing so far. For example, previously they were saying don't wear masks. If you can remember, earlier on they said don't wear masks, only to wear masks. But later they find that no, cannot, must wear masks. So they quickly turn around, say must wear masks. So the dormitory, they find that it's an outbreak. So they quickly do something to segregate everyone. Okay. So right now, just yesterday, find that community leak. So no choice, got to put in added measure. They put in added measure. So it's like that lah. You need to sweep, you sweep lah. But take ownership with a growth mindset lah. So I think so far our government have this kind of mentality lah. 无事我不惹事啦，有事我不怕死, something like that. So how to take ownership? How to take ownership? We are in the confusion state. If you are in a position to have to deal with the confusion state and to bring everybody out of the confusion situation, how do you exactly take ownership? Now, if you are not sure how to do it, refer to 易经. Now you know that confusion state is hexagram 17. So the next guidance that you should take to pull us out of confusion state is to look at hexagram 19, called approaching. Okay, approaching. 地则灵, approaching. That means you approach the problem, the situation with a growth mindset or open mindset. Okay, so now one thing here, I think during the first year to fifth, I mentioned this before, you have learned this about reality. And I say reality is personal. What you see plus the meaning you give it is what you get. So this is reality. So remember, I repeat again, what you see plus the meaning you give it is what you're going to get. And what you're going to get is actually reality, your reality. It may not be mine, but it's yours. Okay. So when people tell you a problem, they are actually telling you problem from their perspective. So if you're going to interpret that problem based on your perspective, you may not see what they see. So one good way is to go down, approach the problem. Called 地质灵. Approaching means you come down, go to the ground, take a look for yourself. Like for example, the most recent one, Changi Airport cluster, the minister straight away went down. So minister straight away adopted this 地质灵, go down, take a look. Okay, called approaching. Now, like I say, how you see the thing and the meaning that you assign to it is what you will get. So for US last year under Trump administration, to the administration, coronavirus is nothing, and no need to worry about the coronavirus. It will go away like a miracle. So that will lead on to how they respond to the pandemic in US, and you can see what happened when they have the kind of response. Okay, but under Biden administration, things have changed. I think they're getting better. So I hope they're getting better always. All right. So, like I say, when people tell you the problem, okay, you don't have to believe a thing they say, because that is their reality. So you may have to go and walk the ground to feel it for yourself, to see the problem from your own perspective. And that is where, most ministers will do this. Or even most bosses will do this. When there's problem on the ground, the bosses will want to walk the ground. It's called 灵, 地质灵, walk the ground. Okay, so yeah, called walking the ground. Now, walking the ground, there are also conditions. If you are the boss and you decided that there's a problem and you want to walk the ground, then refer to this hexagram for guidance, because there's also conditions to have an effective walk the ground. If you execute this wrongly, there will be backlash. Okay, backlash. I will share one example later on. Now, for example, last year when the dormitory outbreak, ministers straight away went down to dormitory, walk the ground, so-called walk the ground. Then recently, I think I mentioned this, Changi Airport cluster, the minister also walked the ground. Okay, so now the condition for walk the ground. 5 things you ought to know before you decide to walk the ground. I'll run through. Now, number 1, approach the situation with a growth mindset. Now, if you already have a closed mindset about the situation, when you walk the ground, you only see what you want to see. That's all. You're going to have blind spots everywhere if you have a closed mindset or fixed mindset about the situation. So number 1 condition is you want to walk the ground, can. Okay, and you genuinely want to walk the ground, then you approach the situation with a growth mindset. Go down with an open mindset to see what you may not want to see, but to accept what you are seeing also. Things like that, open mindset. And once you've decided to walk the ground, you can only move forward, no backing out. Can you imagine you tell the ground that you're going to walk the ground, and then later on you change your mind, say, I don't want to walk the ground already. Okay, so once you started, you can only move forward, no backing out. And then remember this, while you are walking the ground, people on the ground are watching you. It go both ways. While you watch people, people watch you. So you only got one pair of eyes to watch many, many eyes. But that many, many eyes are watching that one pair of eyes, which is you. So best is be authentic. Be authentic. Okay, best is be authentic. Okay. Now, the last but most important thing is here, this one. After walking the ground, you must be able to show perceived values or benefits in 8 months' time. Now, 8 months' time, it could be 8 months, could be 8 weeks, could be 8 years, depending on the situation at hand. So 8 months is just a rough guide 8 just 8 I'll explain later. So if let's say I show you a very real life example many years back, setting background is in Singapore. Okay, if you can recall this MP, in fact MP plus cabinet minister, this first ever female cabinet minister, lasted just 2 months only, and she got derailed because of a handshake that took place during the walk the ground. So if you can recall, look at the right side, she went, walk the ground means you go to the market, you have to shake hand with the fishmonger, with the hawker, with whoever, So she happened to shake hand with the fishmonger, okay, the fish seller, and after wash hand already, and after shake hand already, when she walk away, she go and take out tissue to clean wipe or wash her hand or whatever, and she was spotted doing so by the opposition, okay, by the opposition, and they make big the news lah. So it appeared that she looked very fake lah, not authentic enough. Remember what we talked about this one? Be authentic. While you are walking, people are watching. While you're shaking hands, other people are watching you, especially your enemy. So walk the ground, make sure you walk properly. Otherwise, you get derailed. First ever female cabinet minister that lasted only 2 months because she didn't really walk the ground in the proper manner. Okay? Now, 卦辞 here say 元亨利贞，至于8月有凶啊。The 8 month to show perceived value comes from here. 至于8月有凶. That means, when people know you are walking the ground, when MP come and knock on your door and ask you, okay, not everything okay or not, any improvement or any problem you face, when you raise a problem, right, to the MP, you would expect the MP to do something. Correct? So that is why once you walk the ground, you must show something, some noticeable difference after walking the ground. Otherwise, the ground people will say, you walk is as good as never walk, wasting time. Next time, I won't vote for you. Same thing. Okay, so remember this. So why 8月? Why 8月? Why 8? Basically means here. This is 12壁卦. It also show how the energy move from the max to the minimum to the max. So this is actually a life cycle as well, but in the short form called the 12 hexagram. 12壁卦. So 地泽临 is here. This is 地泽临, called walk the ground. Right? So the timing goes in this manner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You find that this is 风地官. If you flip this, 地泽临, flip it upside down, it is actually 风地官. Okay, 风地官, and you flip 风地官, you back to 地泽临. So this is actually what we call, 对冲 kind of situation. You flip it opposite, it is the same energy actually. So this is the judgment day, which they call 8月有凶. Now, 8 doesn't mean 8 months, doesn't mean 8 days, doesn't mean 8 years. The 8 also may not be exactly 8, but it's telling us that, over a certain period of time, you need to show some perceived value, some perceived benefits. Otherwise, you are wasting that walk the ground effort. You may lose your votes. Okay? So be prepared to be assessed. If you walk the ground, you must be prepared that people will want to assess you, evaluate you, how good you do. Just like US election. Biden took over the administration. So everybody will be, interested to see the 100 days record cut of Biden, how Biden has fared so far on his promises. You see, people are watching. People are watching. Also, be careful. I mean, if you're of certain status or certain authority in your company and we decide to do walk the ground, just remember these are some of the guidelines or good to remember . So it leads us to this 风地官. Remember, 8月有凶, and the 凶 part will lead us to this 风地官. Okay, 风地官, hexagram 20, viewing or observation or evaluation or assessment, no matter how you want to call it. So 风地官. Before we talk about 风地官, I want to bring you back to this universal principle which we discussed in AOM1 and I've covered it in the refresher just now, is that in this universe, in this nature that we live in, there's always something called the observable and there's always something called the unobservable. So since they are called observable and unobservable, and now we are in this viewing hexagram, that involve observing, then these principles we cannot forget. Okay, we cannot forget. In Chinese, it's called 一切都有两面啊，一虚一实。虚 means unobservable, and the 实 means observable. So, like for example, if you're going to put yourself up in, wear a very nice dress and put yourself up in the Facebook, just remember that somebody will say you're pretty, some people will say that hey, not pretty, things like that. There's always two sides, observer and observer, 一阴一阳之谓道, which is very common. Okay, which is very common. Huh? Okay, now if you look at this hexagram, 风地观, and you compare, you draw parallel to this diagram, I think this is called Dolmen Gate. Am I correct, Mary? I think you told me last year what this is called. Is it called Dolmen Gate? Okay. So does it look something like this? The two yang line is actually this one. The two yang line is actually this one. And the bottom is actually the two stand. The two stand. This is called Feng Ti Guan. Here, what it means here is that this thing, these two yang line is something so obvious that people on the ground here, these are the Kun Guan means the common people, the observer, observer are viewing this thing. So it's like this one. This one is so prominent that people is able to look and talk about it. Okay, let's talk about what it says in this this hexagram. 虚卦传物大然后可观，故受之以观。I repeat, 物大然后可观。物大 means when things grow big, grow out of proportion, it suddenly become a blockbuster movie. Something like this. This Dolmen Gate is so big, so therefore become observable. Same thing for things happening in your life. For example, disagreement with your colleague, which can happen from time to time. Let's say a very simple, small disagreement with a colleague. And if let's say you choose not to settle it, but you choose to blow it out of proportion, then you're actually choosing and prepare that this issue may suddenly overnight become a blockbuster movie. And everybody, once it grow very big already, people will come in and observe. There will be a lot of observer. And observer, their mouth will not stop one. They will put in their comments in the Facebook and whatever comments, sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes support you, sometimes against you, things like that. So if you think you can cope with that, go ahead. If you think you cannot cope with that, then make sure you don't make it big. This is how we deal with if you make a choice to be observed or to be assessed or to be evaluated. Now, one very classic example happening local in Singapore and to family that every one of us know, the Lee's family. They have their own internal home issue, family issue, but they decided to blow it big, okay, to blow it big until the whole nation and the whole world is actually observing it. Okay, then again, for observer, most people like to observe, but doesn't like to be observed. So if you are someone who doesn't like to be observed, then my advice to you or Yijing advice to you is 大事化小，小事化无, means big problem, try to make it into small problem. Small problem, try to make it into no problem. Then goes back to AOM1 again. Can you recall in AOM1 which shadows of the hexagram can we talk about in AOM1 pertaining to this? 大事化小，小事化无. We talk about 天水送. Okay, in AOM1, 天水送. And what is your approach to 天水送? It can be the next two 卦. It's either a leading 卦, 地水师, which is called the lake approach, or the 水地比, which is called the paddle approach. So the paddle approach tend to be 大事化小，小事化无. 地水师 tend to be blow out of proportion. So if you intend to blow out proportion and you don't mind, then you can go and adopt the 地水师啦. Okay? So for observer, because a lot of people like to be observer. So that teaching offer guideline for you as observer. Now, 4 guiding principles. Number 1, when we observe, okay, when there's something big and we want to observe, make sure we observe like an innocent child. Okay, like an innocent child. That means you don't know what's happening. When you walk in the street, right? When you see there's a crowd and you don't know what's happening. So it's fine for you to observe like an innocent child. Innocent child means you don't know what's happening. Okay, to be ignorant at this stage. So at this stage, it's like um, the first line of the hexagram is like like learning like that you don't know, therefore honeymoon period 山水萌 is okay for you to ask around, hey, what's happening, like an innocent child it's okay to ask what's happening, get more info, get more info. So by getting more info, by questioning, actually you seek to clarify and you don't seek to jump to conclusion. Remember, don't jump to conclusion because you have not adjusted your reference frame. You have not seen beyond the frame. You have not, look good from far, far from good, that kind of thing. So you're just getting information. So you seek to clarify, but don't jump to conclusion. And then remember back Meng Gua, the learning hexagram is when you ask for information, make sure you dig out the insights. Don't go for the surface information, but go behind the information, look for the insights. What's happening. Now that we have learned I Ching, we have learned the AOM series, pulling out the insights should be pretty easy so that you won't be swayed by the surface information and then join in. Worst is you get swayed by the surface information and you join in. Following, you join in and you follow and not talk in the Facebook, comment in the Facebook and get yourself into trouble. So don't do that. Okay, so remember, first line is observe like an innocent child, seek to clarify, but not to jump to conclusion. Next, pull out insights. And then next, line 2, always remind yourself when you're observing through a narrow gap. Just like, most door will have those peephole, right? Most main door will have peephole. When people knock on your door and you don't want to open the door straight away, you want to know who is it, you look through the peephole. It's something like this, something like this on the picture here. When you look through the peephole, there's only so much you can see. There's so much that's in the observable zone. And the rest are all in the unobservable zone. Okay, so if that guy that's knocking the door happened to be in an unobservable zone, and when you look through the peephole, you find that, nobody's there. So remember this, what you're seeing is only those things that's observable. But when you go and seek to clarify, you are getting to find out what are the unobservable. That is how you adjust your reference frame. Okay, so remember this. When you observe things, know that you're observing through a peephole, a door peephole. So look out for the unobservable. Then next, a lot of people like that, as they watch, they get engrossed into what they are watching and they will just forget about their environment, about where they are, things like that. So be careful. Here is telling us, up to a certain stage, when you have gathered a lot of information and you know what's happening, you know what's running behind the scene. Now you come to a stage whereby you ask yourself, have you watched enough? And should you continue? Okay, so it's like 关我身 关我身 means I know I watched enough already, so should I continue watching or should I just leave the scene and stop observing? Something like this. So let's say, for example, you happen to land onto ISIS web page. Okay, for example, ISIS web page. And ISIS, they are advocating certain kind of ideology. And you're actually doing the observation now because you land on that page and you are reading the observable. Now, if you still can remember what we talked about, following and all the other hexagram that we talk about, then you know that, I think I have read enough and I think I should exit this web page. So this is this stage here. You have watched enough, should you continue? This is your own personal experience. So sometimes, like for example, there could be a fighting in the street. And can you see there are people upstairs, upper level there? They are standing by the railing and watching below. Now, for those who keep on watching, the crowd are building up from behind. Now, if you watch enough, if you think that, okay, like, if I think like police call, then you want to leave, you leave. But if let's say get too engrossed and you get too distracted by the fact that there are crowd building up behind you and pushing forward because they also want to see what's happening. Now, the railing may give way, right? Okay, the railing may give way. So you may be putting yourself in a hazard position. That's why this part here is, if watch enough, ask yourself, should you continue? And be mindful of your environment. Avoid being overly immersed. Back to complacency and alert down mode lah. So this is trapdoors lah. Okay, same goes for fake news. Fake news. It could be in the internet, it could be anywhere else, could be WhatsApp, sending through WhatsApp, then fake news. You have observed enough, read behind the scene. Should you continue? Should you forward it out? Should you send it out? Should you believe? This is what you should do. These are guidance that this hexagram is trying to tell us lah. Okay, so same thing goes for fake news lah. And remember this, because after observing, the tendency is you also want to put in your 2 cents worth. And sometimes people will just share to the Facebook or to social media, Instagram, and then type in your own opinion and comments. And sometimes may land yourself into troubles. So 祸从口出 is a trapdoor for this hexagram. So you want to observe, you observe law, keep to yourself law. But if you really want to comment, make sure you comment the right thing lah. Now, let's take a look at real life. Also happened very recent only. Now, why do you think Ants Group, when they want to launch their IPO, they get cracked down, they get hammered by the Chinese government? What happened was that, the trigger was that Jack Ma said something against the Chinese government. That means he observed the Chinese government, the way of doing things, things like that, and he said something openly, and that gave the Chinese government a reason. So Chinese government actually executed the 地水师, the leading 地水师, because already got a reason to send out the army, so-called send out the army. So 出师有名, the Chinese government, because of what he said, all right, the Chinese government has a reason to go and hammer down Ants Group. Therefore, Ants Group come to a standstill in terms of their IPO. Okay, so just be mindful of this. And once you get hammered, because you say something wrong and you get hammered down like Jack Ma, that is where Jack Ma is going through this right now, biting through. Hexagram 21, 火雷刺客. And just now, before we started this lesson, I think we were talking about COVID-19, the hexagram, right? And we said that the last hexagram was 火雷刺客, biting through. So let's talk about biting through. What does it mean? Since the Qua says that for the current COVID-19, we are in the biting through situation. So what does it really mean? Okay. Any questions so far? Am I going too fast? Or the pace is still okay for you? Type yes in the chat box if the pace is still okay for you. Okay, thank you, Philip. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Chris. Okay, good. 刺客. Now, Jack Ma, really global investor in limbo after an IPO torpedoed by Beijing. So they are in this biting through kind of case. Helen, you're asking, how did we get biting through hexagram just now? You mean the COVID? If you're asking about COVID, it's a quad that one of the other students took. So that's how the biting through came in. Okay. Now, a lot of time, those who speak the loudest often has nothing to say. So actually, Jack Ma has a lot of things to say, but why he need to say things against the Chinese government, I'm not too sure. But anyway, he said what he has said, and he has to bear with the consequence of his chosen response. Okay, so now this I Ching is trying to tell us that no matter how good you are, how good you do, there will always be blockers. Blockers could be, in Chinese layman term called 小人 or people who dislike you or people jealous of you. All these we call that as blockers lah. There'll be blockers trying to throw spanas at you. So for N's group, actually, the Chinese government is already eyeing on them. I believe lah, it's already eyeing on them for a very long time. But that's that they don't have an excuse to push in their army, so-called push in their army. And Jack Ma give them exactly what they needed. Okay, so now, like I say again, now that is Jack Ma issue. But let's say on a daily basis, okay, for yourself, just bear in mind that, how good you are, no matter how good you are, there will be someone who always want to throw spana at you. That means give you trouble. Or this is fact of life. Now, when people give you trouble, for example, sometime from time to time, it may happen to me. For example, if let's say I'm teaching in the classroom style or maybe in here, and maybe one of the students keep asking question nonstop, and trying to throw spana at me and things like that, so that I can't proceed with my class, then I am actually going through biting through. Okay, I'm going through biting through kind of situation. So it can happen to a class situation. It could be happen in your career. It could be happen to anything else, in your life. So just be mindful how to identify whether you're in a 火雷时刻 situation. Let me explain to you this. If you look at this one, this hexagram, okay, this hexagram, it actually comes from this one, 三雷易. 三雷易 is about nurturing. Nurturing is about mouth, about eating, things like that, so that you can nurture your own body and your health. Now, if you look at symbolism, that means image-wise, this is like the mouth. This is the upper lip. Okay, this upper lip. This is the lower lip. Okay, lower lip. And in between the broken lines are the space, the empty space between your upper lip and the lower lip, which means your mouth or your mouth. Now, what happened here is that the moment there's one bone, one fish bone that appear in the middle of your mouth, okay, like this one, this fourth line here, that fish bone will cause a 火雷时刻 in your situation. That means, imagine you're having dinner, you're having an abalone dinner, and you chew, suddenly you felt there was a fish bone somewhere, and you couldn't really, your tongue couldn't really find the fish bone, but it was there somewhere. And then you're chewing the abalone. And then what do you do next? What do you do next? If you have abalone in your mouth with a little bone you can't find, most people do this. There are a few choices. Number one, continue using your tongue to go and pinpoint the bone and try to sing out the bone and then throw out the bone so that finally you can enjoy the abalone. That's one way. Second is you don't care about the bone. Since it's an abalone, you just continue chewing and swallow down the whole thing together with the bone. Third is you get so angry with the bone, you get so frustrated with the bone, and you don't like to swallow down the bone. Therefore, you have to sacrifice the abalone. You throw out everything, including the abalone and the bone. So it's like you do this also like that, no good. You don't do that also no good. This is the feeling of biting through. This is the feeling of ant group. Okay, this is the feeling of ant groups. Want to throw Jack Ma away also cannot. Want to keep also cannot. Want to proceed IPO also cannot. Want to please the Chinese government also got problem. Things like that. So it's biting through. So they are actually, treading on a very thin line. So biting through is something like this. Remember the feeling of the abalone and the fishbone when you talk about biting through. So since we talk about the COVID and we are in the biting through situation, now it's like that. government is in a biting through situation. Want to circuit breaker also cannot. Don't want to circuit breaker also cannot. It's like 进退两难. You get my point? So in the end, who suffer? We as a citizen suffer because the government is in a biting through situation. Want to throw out the bone also cannot. Want to swallow down the bone also cannot. No choice lah. Go in between lah. Continue to let the tongue go and search for the bone lah. So in Singapore context, in COVID-19 context, is continue go and search for the contact trace and then contain them, ring fence them and things like that. Hopefully the abalone is still preserved in a very good condition to be swallowed later on. Okay, so yeah, so this is what we're going through. So okay, that's how we talk about this. So basically there are actually 3 scenarios that you can choose to handle the fish in the abalone. Throw out the bone, bite through your way, or rehabilitate the spina thrower. That means continue look for the bone with tender loving care. Now, if you're in this situation, let's say let's not talk about in class. Maybe student keep on asking question, non-stop, and hindering the class progress. Then I may want to refer back to hexagram 21 and see what I should do. It offers some guidance, so I'm going to share with you the guidance. So here, hexagram 21, it says here, Heng Li Yong Yu. Okay, Heng Li Yong Yu. Heng means good, progress, good. Okay, Li means beneficial. Yong Yu, Yu means prison. Okay, so it means here, if you're in biting through, it will be good to adopt the prison system. Okay, adopt the prison system. Prison system means what? A bit regimental. I'll explain more. Is that Li Yongyu means set, enforce, flip. Very easy. Set, enforce, flip. Number 1, set means set ground rules first. Okay, set ground rules first. So that's why every time before I start the class, I will make an effort to go through the ground rules. I also tell you the 2 rules. Don't believe a thing I say and things like that. So if you want to challenge me, I'll tell you don't believe a thing I say, lor. Okay, so yeah, this is how I trying to tackle the potential biting through situation that may occur during class. That means on the onset, I set the ground rules. So if you choose to be in my class, then you have to accept the house rules. All right. So if you choose not to accept, then you're free to leave the class. That's what it means here. Now, if you choose to accept and you're in my class, then you have to abide by the house rules. Okay, so these are called so-called regimental, the prison system. So when, let's say, if any of the students, I just using the class as an example, so you just relate it to any other examples that you may have experienced before. So in the class, if let's say there's some students or one student forget about the house rules and went into the biting through situation with me, then I can easily invoke the house rules, meaning I can enforce. I can remind, say, okay, remember the house rules I say, don't believe a thing I say, blah, 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 blah. So I remind. Okay, I remind. So it's like, now there's a new ruling, right? If you go and eat hawker center, return the tray, right? So when they implement, I'm sure there'll be reminders, just like wearing masks. You forget to wear, they remind you. But after that, you forget to wear again, they will enforce. So same thing here. I'll remind you of the rules. And if you fail to comply again, I may want to enforce as a last effort. Okay, last effort. Otherwise, I cannot continue the class. All other students may be affected. But at the same time, I also want to always flip with a growth mindset and then find out why is this student doing what he or she is doing something like that. Okay, so Heng Li Yong Yu, this is what it means. So for example, for your case, if you are able to preempt certain kind of biting through situation that may occur, then you may want to refer back to this hexagram. Execute this, put in place this Heng Li Yong Yu, the prison system. So some more guidance from Yi Jing is that, don't throw out the bone immediately. That means if the student throws spana, I don't throw him out immediately lah. I say, hey, please remember the house rules Okay, so I'm okay because people or other students will know who is right, who is wrong. Something like this. So as long as you have the house rules in place, if you enforce it, nobody can say you're wrong because you're given enough reminders and chances. So that is why Eating always say, put yourself in a 无咎 position. That means no blame, no regret position. So I have set the house rules. I've reminded you. I've given you warning. I've given you chances. At the end of it, if you still don't comply, I kick you out of this room. Therefore, I'm in a no blame, no regret kind of position. Okay, so 利勇预也 means you and set the ground rules and enforce it if necessary. But of course, as a last resort lah. Okay, now let me go on to the other side of the table, means the spana thrower. I've already settled the spana receiver part. Now let me move on to the spana thrower side. Now, if let's say you are the one unknowingly become the spana thrower, one thing to tell you that you are the spana thrower is watch out for the 雷电和而章. This one. Watch out for the 雷电和而章. 雷电和而章 means what? 雷电 means thunder and lightning lah. Thunder and lightning lah. So sometimes people just that spana thrower didn't even know that he was a spana thrower. Just keep on asking questions, things like that. When suddenly, for example, the lecturer or the teacher suddenly bang the table, that is 雷电和而章. That means thunder lightning comes already. So if you're the spana thrower, quickly wake up. Okay, quickly wake up, and it's time to pull back. That means you tell yourself you have crossed the line. Okay, then say sorry, then pull back. And then do some self-reflection and try to recover the situation. So this is what spana thrower, if you have learned this eating part here, as a reminder, as a quick guidance, what you should do. Now, if let's say the lecturer, bang the table, and then you get the hint, then you cross the line, and then you pull back, and then you self-reflect. And how do you try to recover the situation? Just like Jack Ma. Jack Ma cross the line and get hantam down. Okay, get hantam down. All right. So how can he self-reflect and try to recover the situation? For this, we'll move on to the next hexagram called the adorning. Adorning means 山火比. Okay, 山火比. So, for example, COVID-19, just now we talk about this 火雷斯克, right? We are in the 火雷斯克 situation, right? So, how should we recover? We should also look at hexagram 22, 山火比. By the way, this year, the hexagram energy that run this year is actually 山火比. And if you can recall, I think sometime back we talked about 山火比 and I asked for your opinions. What do you think 山火比 is, right? I think a lot of you talk about fire outbreak, right? Okay, fire outbreak. Yeah, indeed true. Since the start of the year, there are a lot of fire outbreaks. So which is correct. So this is how the yearly energy shows up or play full out. And this can also means outbursts of viruses. Okay. So now let's move on to hexagram 22. How to bounce back and restore your lost esteem. So like for example now COVID-19, we like going backward, going back to phase 2, and then it's almost as a mini CB, but it's not a CB, things like that. So how can we as a united nation bounce back and restore back our, full glory and say that we are still okay, things like that. So take guidance from this hexagram. Here, it says here, 闭其子舍车而图 means self-restraint. That means straight away self-restraint. That's why CB comes in already. Not CB, the mini CB. Put in the added measure, cut down to 2 people, no dine-in, straight away self-restraint come in. Government know what to do, self-restraint. And then back to basic. Back to basic means please stay at home lah, don't go out lah, just work from home by default, everything go back to basic. It's like, hexagram 1.1 lah, go back to basic lah. Hexagram 1.1 is 潜龙勿用 嘛. Everyone go back to 潜龙, then we are safe already. We can quickly pull out already. So same thing for Jack Ma. Jack Ma also know this hexagram. So that is why once he got clamped down by the Chinese government, he disappeared. His self-restraint, hide, go back to basic, go back to Qianlong, hexagram 1.1. And anyone know where is he right now? I don't know. He disappeared. So that basically means lie low. Lie low. I then don't know what he did. Next is, once you lie low enough already, you make small progress. Try to make small progress. Not big bang again, but small progress. So for Singapore government, the task force, if they know this hexagram, once we are quite okay already with containing the outspread, then we should slowly release the restriction. Not one time 2 people jump back to 8 people, something like that. Not from working from home by default, 75% all can go back to office. No, cannot be that big jump. It must be a slow progression. 风天小旭 again. Okay. Then next is, as you progress, trying to climb out of the turtle shell, remember this, along the way, don't over package more than your superior. Now, here actually means career path. But let's say for COVID and for the task force, it means there are certain rules that we cannot cast it in stone. It has to be flexible. That is what it means by don't over package. Okay, because once you over package, sometimes it's very hard to unwind. To unwind. For example, if we move to phase 3 and you put in certain thing that is fixed one, cannot unwind one, that means it's very hard to move back to phase 2. So if the task force is smart enough, a lot of things should be fluid and flexible, so that you want to remove, straight away can remove. You want to add, straight away can add. Okay, so in this stage, in this hexagram, again, so is to maintain the moderated packaging. That means any restriction, any new rules, it has to be moderated. Don't go full extreme. So if it's not a full CB, then it's not imposing that everyone must stay home. Last time CB is everyone must stay home, right? It's only when you buy grocery they can go out. But this time round, it's not. So here, remember here, that's why I talk about this. Don't use permanent packaging, so that, if it's not permanent, you want to take it down, it's easier. Now, after a while, life is like that. After you've been through the hoop and loops up and down, you find that you begin to feel that packaging is actually not necessary. Okay, not necessary. Going back to plain vanilla is still much better. That is why you can see LKY. Look at his lifestyles all this while. It was very back to basic type. Never as elaborate, never exaggerate type. It's always back to basic one. Okay, so a lot of successful people are also like that. Up to a certain stage, they want to go back to the basic. That means no permanent packaging. So when you have climb up the ladder, let's say for example a career kind of ladder, back to basic can also means that it's time for you to retire. Okay, so when you retire, you also prepare for your retirement. At the same time, reward the people. Okay, but what Yi Jing says here, the higher you are, the more basic the reward should be lah. So our Prime Minister by right should be retiring soon, but because COVID-19 has been extended, so let's see how things goes now, what he plan to do because again, it's his choice of response. Last but not least is always back to basic. So remember this. This year is a year of Pi Gua. Okay, year of the Pi Gua energy. So you find that this year a lot of things go back to basic. Go back to basic. All right, so it's like go back to basic means that everybody come back home, stay at home. Everybody again communicate more with your family members at home. All these are very basic things. Okay, so yeah, so for us is that for those who have to change career because your industry is no longer requiring you to be there, then again you're back to basic. You have to learn new things. You have to learn new things back to school, right? So this is how the energy for this year work. But remember this: don't over package. Avoid permanent packaging. That is why there are people when they're doing good, they like to do a lot of permanent investment, so-called permanent investment. That means you lock yourself into something that is very hard to liquidate, man. And then when times turn bad, you cannot liquidate. You're stuck there. So this is actually what it means here is that if you don't have a lot of those permanent packaging or luggages, when time turns bad, it's very easy for you to discard. It's very easy for you to go through that, the 比卦 to do reverse osmosis back to 太卦, the diminishing and the benefiting process. Remember the right sizing? Because everything is not permanent, it's very easy to drop and discard. But the moment you have a lot of permanent fixtures, it's very hard for you to throw away. So it's also very hard for you to go back to 太卦. So at the end of the day, when you put up makeup in the morning, at night you still have to take it down. So this is really what it means by 比卦. 比卦 means best is no frill, back to basic. The basic must still be there. Okay? So now when we go through this basic, then that is where, when we go through this disappearing like Jack Ma, I think Jack Ma right now must be feeling like this 三地波, 三地波. 三地波 means last bar. Remember I talk about battery, like last bar, okay? Left with the last bar. So what should Jack Ma do? Okay, and how do you feel when you're at this 三地波 hexagram situation? Now I'm going to talk about this. When you're in this situation, you will know, okay? You will know naturally because nothing you do seems to be right. Have you been in this kind of situation whereby whatever you do, it seems to go against you, seems to backfire on you, seems to be wrong way to do it, things like that. So this is called 卜卦, 三地波, 卜卦. I'm sure Jack Ma is feeling like this right now. And supporters can turn blockers. Now Ant Group is actually thinking about discarding Jack Ma, asking him to sell away or divest his shares so that he's not in control. Things like that. Okay, so 小人长也. This is what it means here. This is called 卜卦. 卜卦 feels like this. So ultimately, it's trying to tell us, be nice to people on your way up, because you might meet them again on your way down and you might need their help on your way down. Okay, so humility comes in again. Okay, 第三千 comes in. You comes in very handy here. Now, when in this situation, I Ching give us guidance how to deal, how to move through this situation. 卜卦 is very similar to 否卦. 否卦 is 阻塞不通, right? Choke pipe, right? Choke pipe like Swiss Canal choke, right? 卜卦 is something similar. Okay, something similar but different taste and flavor. It's like I said just now already, everything you do seems to be wrong. And even your friends become your enemy. Things like that. No more supporters, all turn into blockers. This is called 卜卦, but it's very similar. So same thing, if you want to get out of this one, you can always go back to the guidance from 否卦. That means go through the diminishing and the benefiting. Same thing. That's why I say once you've learned AOM, whatever you learn in AOM2, you see shadows of AOM1. So if you want to compress next time after you graduate from this lesson, you can actually just memorize the first 12 hexagram, because everything that happened in your life can be compressed back to the first 12 hexagram. Okay, and then take guidance from there. But of course, if you want deeper learning, you can expand it out and look for the more appropriate hexagram that resonate with a situation. So in this peeling situation, I Ching is telling us, don't go head on. You already know whatever you do is going to turn against you. So don't go head on. Just flow with it. Just flow with it. Thing goes wrong, let it go wrong. Just flow with it. Don't need to resist. So if Chinese government clamp down on Ant Group, clamp down on Jack Ma don't resist, but never go and appeal. I don't know whether they appeal or not, but I don't think Jack Ma will appeal. Just leave it be. If you want to give me a fine, things like that, whatever. Just go with it. Embrace what may come, because whatever you do is not going to help anyway. This is 波卦, last bar already. But instead, you must prepare for rekindling. Remember, 皮卦,否极泰来. So you see this shadow again in here. 帛卦. Okay, 帛卦. Once 帛 is over, 富 comes along. Okay, 富 comes along means rekindle, second chance, reboot. You may want to call it reboot. Okay, so recognizing that this is the universal principle at work. When you're at this 帛卦, just recognize that, accept it that this is universal principle at work and you just have to walk in the universe footstep and then at the same time prepare 潜龙. Okay, go back into 潜龙, prepare for rekindling. So what you should do, since it's the last bar battery, you should preserve the last bar. I think this is what Jack Ma is trying to do. Go into hiding, just preserve the last bar. No need to argue, no need to appeal, no need to do anything else. Just preserve. Okay, and then I don't know what he could be planning. He could be planting some new seeds. He could be doing that. And then he could be spending his disappearance moments trying to nurture that seed and at the same time be resilient. So rekindling, remember this, rekindling never comes, okay, will never come if you give up at peeling. Remember this, if you give up at peeling, then the rekindle will never come. That means the next hexagram will never come. All right, so in Chinese, they call it 薄极必复. It's just like 否极泰来 like that. 薄极必复. That means once peeling is gone, 复 will come on. Once winter is gone, spring going to come on. Once hexagram 12 is gone, hexagram 11 will come on. Okay, so what could be the last bar that you may want to preserve in life? It could be like, for example, your faith that your idea, your business idea may work, although it may fail this time, but you have the faith that your business idea will work. Maybe timing is wrong. And then you may want to keep your last bar of the motivation. Don't get into despair mode. Keep your motivation, keep yourself up, positive, and your intention. Okay, your intention, keep it up. Keep your hope. In Chinese, there is this, what do you call it? 留得青山在, right? 不怕没柴烧, right? So this is called, retain your hope that things will get better. Okay, then don't compromise on your conscience and your integrity. Just because you were left with last bar, then you go into dishonest shortcut. Don't do that. Okay, don't do that. Always preserve your conscience and your integrity, because you qianlong enough, you plant the right seed, you nurture the right seed. When time is right, because fu will come, that is where you can make a comeback. So let us use Jack Ma as a life case study. Let's monitor him. Anyone got any news, please share. Please share. We monitor him because right now what we see of him is that he is at this what do you call that? He has gone disappearing already. He's at the 帛卦 already. So let's see what he did. When he comes out that time, when he made a comeback that time, what happened? What did he do? Things like that. Let's monitor him, shall we? Make him our life case study. That's where we learn, right? That's where we see hexagram and AOM come alive. Okay, so when there's a yang, there's hope. So in peeling, the most critical line is which line? Can you type in the chat box? In peeling hexagram, the most critical line is which line? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you, Helen. Line 6, the main one and only yang line. Okay, that is the one. Now, energy is energy. It works both ways. It works in the correct way. It works also in the not that good way also. So it's like that. While we are trying to clear all the COVID, COVID-19 also know how to preserve the last yang. So there will be hidden reservoir somewhere. And that is why it's able to get leaked out into the community because the last yang is somewhere. And it's able to qianlong. And then when the right timing comes, it's going to explode again. That's why we have this phase two. So it works both ways. It works both ways. So therefore, we must know how to promote harmonious coexistence with COVID-19. Learn to live with COVID-19 in some ways. So if we need to wear mask, we wear mask. If we don't travel now, we don't travel now. Why rush? Why rush? Okay. Okay. So the whole intention of pulling through peeling hexagram is to be able to finally, I'm sure this is what Jack Ma is trying to hope, is to finally be able to make a comeback, which is hexagram 24, 地雷赋, rekindling. Can you see previously the last bar was on top? And basically what we are waiting for is for this last bar, to go upside down, okay, go into the ground again, plant the seed so that this young line can push out and become this 地雷赋. 地雷赋 means reboot, return, come back, resume, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so 地雷赋. Let's move on to talk about this. Now, 卦辞 say 亨地雷赋 means 亨以七日来复. You see the highlighted one, 七日来复利有攸往. What it means here, 七日来复 means it's like Monday will come every 7 days. Monday will come every 7 days. So Monday will always come back. So what you're trying to tell here is that, no winter lasts forever. No spring skips its turns. So no peeling will stay forever. No rekindling will skip its turn. No toppling will last forever. No hexagram will skip its turn. Same thing for this pandemic. No pandemic lasts forever. So no spring will skip its turn. So if we persevere enough, we do what we need to do. 山峰谷, remember the 山峰谷 thing? I'm sure we'll be out of the wood very soon, including the whole world. If everybody doing the same thing, then we will have a rekindling energy. All right. So basically, this is what it means. Don't lose hope. You see, I Ching is so kind to us. Always give us hope. Always give us hope. But then, you also tell us that, when the spring comes, you don't miss the window of opportunity again. Okay, we may have missed out a lot of opportunity in our past years because we don't know I Ching enough. Now, when it comes around soon, make sure you don't miss the window of opportunities because, like the flowers, they don't always stay pretty. So in Chinese, 初九不远赴, 不远赴, 无私悔无原籍. Okay, this 不远赴 has a lot of meaning to it, a lot of significant meaning to it. Now, number one is that, okay, what it means here, if rekindle comes on, it's trying to tell us that the window of opportunity is actually very short, very narrow. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. So it's called 不远赴. Okay, that's the first meaning. There will be some other significant meanings. I will talk about it later on. Another significant meaning is 不远赴 means no matter how far you have gone on the wrong road, you can still turn around. The key is the earlier, the better. Now, remember last year we talked about Singapore government say that no need to wear mask. Only sick then you wear mask. But later on they found that it is a mistake. So they go into 不远赴. That means the earlier the better they U-turn. And then they tell us, say, everybody, healthy one also wear mask. Okay, so they U-turn. So 不远赴 can also mean U-turn. The earlier, the possible. All right, so recently one, they were saying that they open up travel bubble, things like that, But suddenly there's an outbreak, they suddenly pull brake, 不远赴, U-turn again, say, okay, go back to phase 2. Something like this. Okay, so if let's say if you don't know how to 不远赴, you know it's a mistake and you don't want to U-turn and you purposely drag, don't want to U-turn, then things will get into, you violate the hexagram 2.1. 2.1 is 驴双肩并治. Means that thing, if you don't nip it at the butt, you will turn into a monster you can't control. So like last year, US, even Trump, the number one man, supposed to lead by example, and he really lead by example by not wearing any mask. And therefore, there's an outbreak because of not wearing mask, things like that. Okay, so 不远赴 the second significant meaning is if you spot the mistake, you know your mistake, quickly U-turn. The earlier, the better. So the quality of your reboot, of your coming back, of your rekindling will depend very much on how you leverage on the peeling that comes before it. We know peeling comes before rekindling. So if you want the rekindling, because once you go through the peeling, we naturally want to look forward to the rekindling. But because rekindling had this 不远赴 kind of characteristics, because the window is so fast and narrow, we don't want to miss that. Therefore, we should do our preparation work during the peeling, during our disappearing. Get my point? Okay, so I think Jack Ma is doing this, making use of the disappearing moment. I hope he's not in jail, but doing at this moment to plant the new seed, to map out a future path for himself, so that when the times come, he can make a reboot. It will be a good one, Okay, so remember this: the quality of a rekindling depends very much on how you leverage on the peeling that comes before it. So I Ching is always doing preparation work. 先假散热, 后假散热. Something like that. Always doing preparation work one, and then after that have resiliency. So very good. This very good classic life example, Kodak and Fujifilm. I'm sure last time who is the industry leader? I'm sure you all know is Kodak. Industry leader. Fuji was just second or third. I don't know. But now Kodak, the leader, is nowhere to be found. But Fuji is doing very, very well. Okay, Kodak, why disappear is because they drop out from the peeling. They are not nimble enough. They go into complacency. They are tone deaf. Therefore, they drop out. Fuji, they're able to do a lot of their diminishing and benefiting process, the right sizing. Therefore, they come out even stronger. Okay, they come out even stronger. I think Fuji is doing very well, very, very well. So why is Fuji able to survive, Kodak cannot? It's because of their choice of responses. So basically, it boils down to one thing. All in all, if you look at AOM1 and today's lesson, basically it's telling us, 易经安而不忘危. And 安而不忘危 means during peacetime, don't forget the threat of terrorism. Don't forget the threat of pandemic. Don't forget the threat of war. Things like that. Don't forget there's danger. Because right next to hexagram 11 is hexagram 12. So 安而不忘危. Loosely translated means at all time we must remain resilient. So this word resiliency is actually very key concept, principle in the entire I Ching. This book, okay, it's very key, resiliency. All right, so no matter whether it's your own life, personal life, family, career, your job, even your project, everything resilient. Okay, resilient. Okay, so I think we have covered up to hexagram 24 for today. And when we reach this hexagram 24, can you see it is like a miniature AOM1, another cycle, a shadow of the AOM1 in today's lesson. Again, end up with like last hexagram AOM1, right? We end up in hexagram 11 and then 12. Now for today's lesson, we end up in peeling, and then followed up by the rekindling. Okay, so we can see that. So I think I will stop here for today because this is a very good, clean hexagram to stop for today. So you see that today we cover up to hexagram 24. Tomorrow we're going to cover some more. And then next Saturday, we're going to complete the rest. All right. So, so far, any question, feel free to type in your question. Now, to sum up, what we have learned is seek common grounds, respect the difference. Pride and arrogance comes before a fall. Right. So remember, don't go to the max. Okay. 大有, and then joyfulness means every extreme pleasure has a sting in its tail. 乐极生悲. So then next thing is, if you can identify a problem, potential problem, nip it at the bud before it turns into a monster you can't control. All right. So then again, we also know that reality is what you see, plus the meaning you give it is what you get. So when people tell you the problem, they are telling you the problem from their perspective. So if you want to resolve the problem, you may have to walk the ground and feel it for yourself, experience it for yourself. Okay, but there are conditions for you to walk the ground. And remember, 八月有凶, that means be prepared to be evaluated lah, and prepared to show perceived values and benefits lah, from the walk the ground. Then last but not least, the quality of your spring or your rekindling will depend on how you make use of the winter, which means the peeling hexagram. So basically, I think we cover all these. These are key principles that if any one of us can apply this in our daily living, I think we are in safe hands. We are always in the sweet spot. We are always walking above the evolvement and the unfolding of events. And we are able to see things behind the scene much clearer and better than anyone else. Okay, so I think I've covered that. If you have no question, then can I request all of you to just type one liner in the chat box. What have you learned today that you can use to advance yourself in this uncertain time? Philip say back to basic. Thank you. Joanna say humble and be consistent. Thank you. Mary say the flow of vibration through the hexagram. Oh, thank you very much. Chris say, prepare yourself during winter so that you can do well when the spring comes. Yes, 不远赴. Okay, very good. Anyone else? Andrew say, I might have missed. What is the most crucial part to note during the peeling? Preserve your yang, Andrew. Preserve your yang. You only got left with one last bar of battery. So how you do with your handphone is how you do with your life during a peeling situation, Andrew. Helen says, stay resilient. Okay, thank you very much for your time. Anyone else? I think most of you has written. Okay, Ken. So what is next? Tomorrow, same time, 2 to 5, we'll cover some more of the hexagram, and then the rest we'll cover it in next Saturday. All right, so if no further question, then that is all from me for today's lesson. I thank you for your time, and I hope to see you back tomorrow, same time, 2 to 5. I will turn on this one and 1:45 p.m. so you can come in early. We can start on time. Okay, so thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.